Guys, this is our first part. If you haven't already, you need to do the first part, so this is where we're leaving off. For this one, we're going to add a frog, give him a custom drop shadow. We're also going to add an insect and give him an outer glow. And then overall, we're just going to add a texture, and we're going to change the blending mode of how we want those two layers to interact with each other. So for this first one, I need to bring up my frog. And again, I could try to select the background and add to it. If I hold down Shift, I can continue to select the background. But notice that once I'm going to try to select this little spider too. So I use my magic wand to select the background, and I'm going to do select inverse. But notice that it kind of got some of the shadows, and I don't want those shadows. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use another one. You could always use more than one selection tool while you're making selections. I'm going to use the quick selection tool and go to where it says negative. I'm going to subtract from that, and I'm just going to click and drag, and I want to subtract from the shadow. So I'm going to subtract this shadow, and I don't want these shadows back here as well. So I'm just brushing over, and I'm getting rid of that portion of the selection. And I went a little bit too far in some areas, so I'm going to go back to add. And I'm going to add this, and I accidentally got rid of a little bit of his toe, and it's looking much better. Okay, let me check my selection. All right, so now I'm ready to go to modify my selection. I'm going to say select and modify. And I want to smooth out the selection by like 2 pixels. And I'm going to contract a little bit. I'm going to modify and contract by 1 pixel, so that just hugs it all in. And now I'm ready to bring them over. I'm going to hit Command C to copy, go to my original, and Command V to paste. So I'm going to use the move tool to move them over here, and Command T to make him larger. And I'm going to put him right here, and I'm going to move Herman over just a little bit so we can see the frog a little bit better. Okay, now with the frog layer selected, let me name him really quick. I'm going to double click to select the layer and name him. I'm going to duplicate the frog layer, Command J to duplicate, so I should have one that says copy. And now I'm going to change the saturation of this layer. So I really just have 2 frogs on top of each other. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, and I'm going to go to Hue and Saturation. Now before you play around with the dials, it's very important that you click on Colorize. I'm then going to bring down the saturation of the frog to 0. Notice that it's got rid of all the color. And then I'm going to bring down the lightness of that layer as well, and notice that now it's black. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to transform the copy. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and notice that I have all these different options. So I want to distort the shadow, so it's kind of pulled out from him. So I'm going to hit Return and Enter after I distorted it, and then I'm going to bring that copy now underneath that original frog. So my copy's going underneath. I'm clicking and dragging to bring it behind, and it doesn't look really natural. So what I'm going to do is, with the frog copy selected, that's his shadow, I'm going to bring down the opacity of that layer. So now it looks a little bit more natural. I'm still not happy with the orientation of the shadow, so I'm going to go back to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to warp it a little bit. So I'm going to bring this back a little bit more. And so it's like under his, yeah, and bring that over. I'm still not happy with how natural this looks, so I'm going to hit Return, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the eraser tool and just erase a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural. There we go. Okay, so I'm happy with this. So the next thing I'm going to add to this is I'm going to add a blending. So I'm going to let you guys pick. There is 2 textures. There's a rust one, or there's a water droplets one. You're going to pick between them. I'm going to pick the rust one. And what I want to do is select the whole thing. Command A selects all. Command C copies. I'm going to go back to my montage and Command V to paste. Now notice it's really small, so what I need to do is Command T to resize it. And I want it to fill up the whole space. And then I am going to hit return when I have it the size that I want to. So we're just going to call this texture. And I want to change the blending mode. So if I go to where it says normal, this is all these different blends. So if I select it, notice that it's interacting with the layers below it differently. Ooh, that one's really cool. And notice that my texture is kind of in the middle of all my layers. So I could put it on top of everything, or I can put it, you know, back here. It's totally up to you. I kind of like that. That's really crazy. And you could also change the opacity of that. I'm going to bring it all the way back on top. I just think that looks really cool. I'm going to bring down the opacity though, because I don't want it to be too powerful, but it's still there. Really cool. All right, the last thing I want to bring in for this is I'm going to bring in a insect, and I'm going to give him an outer glow. So I'm done with the frog. I can close that. Done with the flower. Close that. The rust and the water droplets I'm done with now. So I'm going to go to my insect, and this is a really hard one to select. So what I actually select, I actually recommend is actually using the pen tool set on path to make this selection. So what that means is when I pick the pen tool, I'm going to come up here and make sure that it's set to path and not shape. If I hit shape and I start drawing, notice that it's actually making a shape. I don't want it to do that. So again, make sure after you pick the pen tool that it's set to path. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and I'm just clicking around the edges, and you can make as many points as you want. So if you're in design 1, you'll notice that, like, well, you know, making paths, you're not supposed to make that many points. It does not matter for this one. This is just making a selection. So notice that this one's really hard because it has that drop shadow. It has this weird translucency in the wings. Also note that when I click and drag, it can curve the selection. So I'm going to do that down here. And I'm going to go around the whole shape. Okay, I'm going to go really quickly just so we can move along so you guys can see this. And you guys are going to do it the right way and actually do it like I did over here. I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to cut off his antennas, but you guys should include it. And then I'm going to go back to this very first layer. So you guys make sure that you go around the whole thing. It's going to take some time. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to skip some steps. And I'm going to go back to the very first point and hit that Genesis point. But notice that it's still a path, okay? So it's going to ask you up here, what do you want to do with what you've just selected? So you're going to make it a selection. I'm going to hit the selection button, and it's going to say, do you want to feather it? Yeah, why not? So I'm going to feather this selection, and now it's selected. I'm going to hit Command C to copy. I'm then going to go to my montage and Command V to paste. So I'm going to move that up here, and I'm going to hit Command T to transform. I'm going to rotate it, click and drag on the corner to rotate it, make it a little bit bigger here, and hit return. The last thing I want to do is add a special effect. So I'm going to name this insect, double click it, and then I'm going to go down to FX in my layers palette, and I'm going to look for the one that says outer glow. And notice that I can again play with the blending mode of how the outer glow interacts with the background. I can play with the opacity of that outer glow, the color of it. Maybe I want it to be like a shocking pink. Can't really see that. I'm going to go back to green. Yeah, green. And maybe I'll try different blending modes. Ooh, that's cool. The spread and the size of it is a little much for me, so I'm going to bring that down and then hit OK. So this is all you need to do for part 2. So I, again, am going to go to File, Save As, and I have my first and last name, Montage, the date, where it says Format. I'm going to pick Photoshop again, so the next time I open this, I can manipulate it and hit Save. replace. Okay.